This is not a drill. This is a full-scale food crisis unfolding right before our eyes, and most people are completely blind to it. Every day, grocery store shelves look full, but behind the scenes, major food shortages are accelerating at a pace we've never seen before. The warning signs are everywhere: soaring prices, erratic harvests, and government restrictions creeping in under the radar. If you think these shortages won't affect you, think again. The global food supply is hanging by a thread, and once that thread snaps, millions will be caught completely off guard. We're talking about essential, everyday foods, the kind that people rely on for survival, becoming scarce, rationed, or completely unavailable. Do you really want to find yourself scrambling for food when prices have doubled or tripled overnight? Do you want to be that person staring at an empty shelf, wishing you had stocked up sooner? The writing is on the wall, production is declining, supply chains are collapsing, and governments are already warning about food security threats. Yet most people are still asleep at the wheel. But not you. You're here because you want to be ahead of the chaos. In this video, we're exposing the top 10 foods that are vanishing faster than anyone expected. These aren't luxury items. These are necessities. If you don't act now, you'll regret it later when these foods are either unaffordable or completely out of reach. Stay sharp, take notes, and move fast, because time is running out. Number 10. Wheat and flour. Wheat, the backbone of global food security, is under relentless attack from multiple fronts, making future availability increasingly uncertain. The top wheat-producing nations, Russia, the United States, Canada, and Australia, have all been battered by extreme weather conditions, from devastating droughts to catastrophic floods, limiting their ability to produce consistent, high-quality yields. Data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, indicate that global wheat reserves have been steadily declining, with some reports suggesting a potential shortfall of 10 to 15% in major export stocks. Climate volatility isn't the only problem. In regions like Ukraine and Russia, geopolitical tensions have directly disrupted wheat production and exports, leading to volatility in global markets. Experts analyzing agricultural reports highlight that grain exports from Ukraine, a vital supplier for Europe and North Africa, have dropped significantly since the conflict began, forcing dependent nations to scramble for alternative sources. Meanwhile, India, another significant wheat producer, has imposed periodic export bans to maintain domestic stability, further tightening global supply. The consequences are hitting consumers hard. Flour prices have soared across grocery stores, reflecting increased production costs, transportation constraints, and dwindling reserves. The milling industry has raised alarms that if this trend continues, shortages could emerge more frequently, limiting flour-based products like bread, pasta, and baked goods. Food security analysts on YouTube warn that wheat scarcity will hit lower-income households the hardest, as bread is often the cheapest and most accessible food staple. Preppers discussing long-term strategies suggest bulk buying and proper storage of flour in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, ensuring longevity for up to a decade. Those with access to grain mills recommend stockpiling whole wheat berries, which last significantly longer than pre-ground flour and retain their nutritional value. Some homesteaders are even turning to ancient grains like einkorn and spelt, which are more drought-resistant and nutrient-dense, as a hedge against wheat instability. Regardless of how this crisis unfolds, those who fail to secure their wheat supply now could face significant disruptions in their daily diet, making it one of the most urgent staples to stockpile before it's too late. Number 9. Canned meats and proteins. Canned meats like chicken, beef, tuna, and even Spam have become one of the most hotly contested items in survival and prepping communities, and for good reason. These protein-packed goods have long shelf lives, are versatile in recipes, and require no refrigeration, making them a cornerstone of emergency food supplies. However, recent supply chain disruptions, rising feed costs, and unpredictable weather patterns have converged to make canned meat a more difficult commodity to secure. The FAO and USDA have both warned that livestock production faces growing challenges due to inflation-driven feed price increases, reduced herd sizes, and logistical bottlenecks at meat processing facilities. In the U.S., beef production has been particularly strained as persistent droughts in major cattle-producing states like Texas and Kansas have forced ranchers to reduce herd sizes, leading to lower beef availability and higher retail prices. Poultry farms have been battered by avian flu outbreaks, resulting in the culling of millions of chickens and turkeys, causing sporadic shortages in grocery stores. Meanwhile, the fishing industry struggles with overfishing regulations and fluctuating ocean temperatures that impact tuna and salmon populations, leading to periodic shortages and price spikes. Discussions on prepping forums highlight that canned meats have been disappearing from store shelves in some areas, with bulk buying trends contributing to short supply. A closer look at international markets reveals that China, a significant player in meat imports, has been stockpiling protein reserves, further straining global supplies. Analysts on YouTube have noted that some retailers are already implementing limits on the number of canned meat products per customer, signaling growing scarcity. Those who rely on these protein sources should consider expanding their stockpile while prices remain somewhat stable, as there is no guarantee that future supplies will be as readily available. Some survivalists recommend pressure canning meat at home for long-term storage, while others point to freeze-dried meat options, which, although expensive, offer a 25-year shelf life. Regardless of the method, failing to secure a steady protein source now could leave consumers vulnerable to soaring prices and potential rationing. Number 8. Rice. Rice, the staple food for over half of the world's population, is teetering on the edge of a supply crisis that could have widespread ramifications. Climate-induced disasters in major rice-growing nations such as India, China, Thailand, and Vietnam have dramatically impacted yields, making consistent rice production a growing challenge. Reports from the International Rice Research Institute, IRI, reveal that monsoons have become increasingly erratic, alternating between severe droughts and extreme floods, both of which destroy crops and reduce harvests. Adding to the chaos, India, the world's largest rice exporter, recently imposed export restrictions on certain rice varieties, triggering panic buying and price surges in international markets. In the United States, California's rice production has plummeted due to severe drought conditions, with reservoirs at critically low levels preventing adequate irrigation. Data from the USDA suggests that the U.S. rice harvest has seen a decline of nearly 15% in recent years, forcing domestic buyers to compete for limited supplies. This squeeze on the global market has caused rice prices to climb to levels not seen in over a decade, making it more difficult for low-income nations to secure their necessary imports. Meanwhile, China has been stockpiling rice reserves aggressively, further straining the available supply. The situation has not gone unnoticed in prepping circles, where stockpiling rice has become an urgent priority. Survivalists emphasize that white rice, when stored properly in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, can last over 25 years, making it a crucial long-term food storage item. Brown rice, while more nutritious, has a shorter shelf life due to its higher oil content, but freezing it can help extend usability. Experts in food security suggest that alternative grains like millet, quinoa, and barley may become more prominent as rice prices continue to rise, but these substitutes lack the affordability and cultural significance of rice for billions of people worldwide. Some analysts predict that if current production trends continue, rice shortages could become a recurring issue, leading to government-imposed rationing in certain regions. Preppers who fail to act now may find themselves facing steep price hikes or empty store shelves in the near future, making rice an essential commodity to stockpile before the next wave of shortages hits. Number 7. Cooking oils. Cooking oils are one of the most overlooked yet essential components of any pantry, and the global supply of these critical kitchen staples is under increasing pressure. Sunflower oil, soybean oil, palm oil, and even olive oil have all experienced significant price hikes and shortages in the past few years, driven by a lethal combination of climate change, supply chain bottlenecks, and geopolitical conflicts. The war in Ukraine, which is responsible for nearly 50% of global sunflower oil exports, has sent shockwaves through the edible oil market, leading to disruptions that ripple across the entire food industry. Farmers in Ukraine have struggled with production, and ports have faced blockades, limiting their ability to ship vital oil supplies. Meanwhile, droughts and extreme weather in South America have crippled soybean oil production, with Argentina and Brazil, two of the world's largest exporters, reporting lower than expected harvests. The USDA and FAO have issued warnings that erratic rainfall patterns and deforestation in Indonesia and Malaysia, the top two palm oil producers, are straining global palm oil reserves. These shortages have forced governments and manufacturers to impose restrictions on exports, further tightening the market. European nations, for example, have seen olive oil prices skyrocket as prolonged droughts in Spain, the world's largest olive oil producer, have led to one of the worst harvests in decades. The ripple effect of these disruptions is staggering, as cooking oils are a fundamental ingredient in processed foods, baked goods, and even biofuels. Analysts tracking food inflation report that prices for vegetable oils have surged by over 40% since 2022, with some markets seeing even higher spikes. Preppers and homesteaders emphasize the importance of stocking up on oils with a longer shelf life, such as coconut oil, which remains stable for years, or investing in oil storage solutions like refrigeration or vacuum sealing. Some survivalists have begun pressing their own oils from seeds and nuts, though this process requires specialized equipment and substantial raw materials. If shortages continue, everyday consumers could find themselves facing rationing or significantly higher costs for basic cooking essentials. Anyone who fails to prepare now risks paying exorbitant prices, or worse, going without one of the most fundamental kitchen staples altogether. Number 6. Corn and corn-based products. Corn is not just an ingredient in food. It is an industrial powerhouse that affects countless industries, from livestock feed to ethanol production to processed foods. The United States, which produces nearly 35% of the world's corn, has faced successive years of droughts and unpredictable weather patterns that have drastically reduced yields. Reports from the USDA indicate that corn production in key states like Iowa, Nebraska, and Illinois has been hampered by extreme heat, lowering kernel formation and stunting growth. In South America, Brazil and Argentina have encountered similar struggles, with erratic rainfall and soil degradation impacting harvests. Beyond climate challenges, economic factors are also tightening the corn supply. The rising costs of fertilizers, many of which are derived from natural gas and petroleum, have significantly increased the expense of corn farming. Global fertilizer shortages have forced some farmers to cut back on planting, leading to lower overall yields. Meanwhile, biofuel mandates in multiple countries have diverted large portions of the corn supply toward ethanol production, reducing the amount available for food and livestock feed. As a result, food products that rely heavily on corn, such as cereals, tortillas, cornstarch, and even sodas sweetened with high-fructose corn syrup, are seeing higher prices and supply fluctuations. Stockpile advocates warn that cornmeal and cornstarch should be prioritized in long-term storage, as these products form the basis of many staple recipes. Vacuum sealing corn-based goods and keeping them in cool, dry storage can extend their usability. Some homesteaders have even begun growing their own maize as a hedge against commercial shortages, though this requires space and proper cultivation techniques. If the trends of declining harvests and increasing demand persist, consumers may soon see corn shortages affecting not just food, but also animal feed, leading to further price hikes in meat and dairy. Anyone who relies on corn-based staples should act now before the market tightens even further. Number 5. Salt. Salt is one of the most critical survival items, yet it is increasingly being overlooked as supply chains become more fragile. While it may seem like an abundant and basic commodity, disruptions in mining operations, transportation, and economic policies are threatening long-term availability. Major salt producers like China, the United States, India, and Germany have all faced production limitations due to labor shortages and increased energy costs. Mining salt is a resource-intensive process, and in regions where industrial electricity prices have skyrocketed, production has slowed significantly. Additionally, global shipping delays have made it more difficult for countries that rely on imported salt to secure their usual supplies. Beyond table salt, industrial salt is essential for food preservation, water softening, and chemical manufacturing, meaning that any disruption in supply sends shockwaves throughout multiple industries. Reports from trade journals indicate that governments are prioritizing salt supplies for winter road treatment and industrial uses, meaning that consumer-grade salt stocks could see reductions in availability. Moreover, as more people turn to natural sea salts and mineral-rich options like Himalayan pink salt, the demand for specialty salts is outpacing supply, leading to sharp price increases. Preppers and long-term planners strongly recommend stockpiling salt, as it is a virtually indestructible item that lasts indefinitely when stored properly. Salt is essential for food preservation methods like curing meats, pickling, and fermentation, making it an indispensable item for self-sufficiency. Some homesteaders are even harvesting their own salt by evaporating seawater, though this process requires time, equipment, and a stable water source. Given salt's role in food security and preservation, those who fail to secure their supply now could find themselves paying significantly more or struggling to find it at all when the next shortage wave hits. Number 4, beans and legumes. Beans and legumes, often referred to as the poor man's protein, are becoming increasingly scarce, making them an urgent item to stockpile before it's too late. These nutritional powerhouses, black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils, and split peas, are vital for food security worldwide, but their production is under immense pressure due to erratic weather patterns, declining farmland, and shifting agricultural priorities. Major producing regions like the United States, Brazil, India, and Canada have faced dramatic fluctuations in harvests due to climate extremes, from scorching droughts that stunt growth to relentless floods that wipe out entire crops. The USDA has reported that dry bean yields in the U.S. have been on a downward trend, particularly in states like North Dakota and Michigan, where fluctuating temperatures have disrupted planting cycles. Adding to the crisis, global demand for plant-based proteins has skyrocketed as more consumers turn away from meat due to rising costs and health concerns. This demand has driven prices higher while also straining supply chains. India, the world's largest producer and consumer of lentils, has faced unpredictable monsoons that have devastated harvests, forcing the government to impose export restrictions. Meanwhile, Canada, a top exporter of lentils and chickpeas, has seen inconsistent production due to water shortages, making international trade more unreliable. Preppers and food security experts emphasize that beans and legumes should be at the top of any long-term storage list. Properly stored dried beans can last up to 30 years when kept in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, making them one of the most reliable protein sources in emergency scenarios. Canned beans, while having a shorter shelf life, offer immediate convenience and should also be stockpiled. Some survivalists recommend learning to sprout beans, as this method provides a nutrient-dense food source even when fresh vegetables are unavailable. With prices rising and availability fluctuating, those who fail to secure a robust bean supply now may find themselves without an essential protein source in the near future. Number 3, pasta. Pasta, a staple food that millions rely on for quick and affordable meals, is facing mounting supply threats, making it a high-priority item to stockpile. As a wheat-based product, pasta is directly affected by global wheat shortages, which have been exacerbated by extreme weather, geopolitical instability, and supply chain breakdowns. Italy, the world's pasta capital, has seen significant wheat supply issues, forcing manufacturers to adjust production levels and driving up costs. In North America, durum wheat, the variety used for high-quality pasta, has suffered from poor harvests in the U.S. and Canada due to prolonged drought conditions. The Canadian Grain Commission has reported that durum wheat yields have declined by as much as 20% in recent years, leading to tighter supply chains and price hikes. Beyond wheat shortages, energy costs have also impacted pasta production. Factories require significant amounts of water and electricity to produce and dry pasta, and with rising fuel prices, manufacturers are passing these costs on to consumers. Additionally, transportation disruptions have made it more expensive to ship pasta across borders, leading some retailers to limit stock or raise prices dramatically. In 2023, reports surfaced of pasta shortages in several European countries, with some supermarkets rationing purchases to prevent panic buying. Preppers and long-term food storage enthusiasts recommend stocking up on pasta due to its long shelf life and versatility. When stored in airtight containers in a cool, dry place, pasta can last decades without degrading in quality. Some homesteaders have even started making their own pasta from stored wheat and eggs, though this requires time and effort. Food security experts suggest pairing pasta with shelf-stable sauces, dried herbs, and canned proteins to ensure a balanced meal during extended food shortages. With wheat markets remaining unstable and supply disruptions becoming more frequent, failing to build a pasta stockpile now could mean significantly higher costs or outright shortages in the near future. Number 2, canned vegetables. Canned vegetables, a crucial source of nutrients when fresh produce becomes scarce, are disappearing from store shelves faster than most people realize. The primary issue behind this growing shortage is the cascading effect of extreme weather conditions on global agriculture. Droughts, floods, and temperature swings have all contributed to reduced vegetable harvests, forcing canneries to process and package fewer goods. In the U.S., California's Central Valley, responsible for a significant portion of the nation's canned vegetable production, has faced severe water restrictions, leading farmers to cut back on planting key crops like tomatoes, corn, and green beans. The USDA has reported that tomato processing for canned goods has declined by over 15% in recent years due to water shortages, making products like canned tomatoes, pasta sauces, and salsas more expensive and harder to find. Internationally, Europe has seen similar struggles, with France and Spain reporting lower vegetable yields due to extreme heat waves and soil degradation. In Asia, China, a major exporter of canned vegetables, has experienced logistical slowdowns due to increased energy costs and government restrictions on agricultural exports. These combined factors have led to rising prices and intermittent shortages, leaving consumers with fewer options. Stockpile advocates stress that canned vegetables should be a priority in any emergency food plan. Unlike fresh produce, which spoils quickly, canned vegetables can last 5-10 years when stored properly. Additionally, they retain essential vitamins and minerals, ensuring nutritional balance during food crises. Some homesteaders recommend home canning as a backup strategy, though this requires proper equipment and sterilization techniques. Food security analysts warn that if vegetable production continues to decline, canned goods could become increasingly expensive and scarce, forcing consumers to rely on nutrient-deficient processed foods. Those who fail to stock up now may face a future where even the simplest canned vegetables are a luxury rather than a pantry staple. Number 1. Powdered milk and dairy alternatives. Powdered milk, once considered a backup food item, is now becoming a must-have staple as dairy shortages continue to worsen worldwide. The dairy industry has been battling multiple crises, from skyrocketing feed prices and labor shortages to extreme weather events and declining cattle populations. The United States, one of the top milk producers, has seen its dairy farms shrink significantly, with small and mid-sized farms shutting down due to rising operational costs. The USDA reports that milk production in key states like California and Wisconsin has declined, leading to increased prices for all dairy products, including milk, cheese, and butter. Internationally, the European dairy sector has faced strict environmental regulations that have forced some farms to cut herd sizes, further reducing milk output. In Australia and New Zealand, major exporters of powdered milk, unpredictable droughts and floods have wreaked havoc on dairy production, limiting the amount available for export. Meanwhile, China, a major buyer of powdered milk, has been aggressively stockpiling supplies, further tightening the global market. This hoarding effect is similar to what happened with baby formula shortages, where sudden demand spikes led to widespread panic buying and price surges. Food security analysts on YouTube and prepping forums highlight the importance of stocking powdered milk, as it can be stored for years without refrigeration and provides a critical source of calcium and protein. Many survivalists also recommend securing dairy alternatives like powdered coconut milk, soy milk, or oat milk, as these have longer shelf lives than fresh dairy and can serve as substitutes in cooking and baking. Some homesteaders have even started learning how to make their own dairy substitutes using nuts and grains to hedge against potential shortages. If current dairy supply trends continue, consumers can expect even higher prices and more frequent stockouts, especially for shelf-stable dairy products. Those who fail to act now may find themselves without an essential food staple, forced to either pay exorbitant prices or go without dairy altogether. Given its long shelf life and nutritional value, powdered milk is one of the smartest food items to stockpile before the next wave of shortages hits.